everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and I'm back today with another classic shelf video. This one is going to be fairly short because I don't really have that many tips to go along with this video, but I thought it was a good way to kind of go along with the previous classic shelf video that I filmed and uploaded for you guys. That was the introductory classics type of thing that included like Pride and Prejudice and Dracula and some Sherlock short stories. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. Link it up here and it'll be down in the description bar down below for when you're done this video if you want to go over there. So this video today is concerning, as you can tell by the title, how I read classics. And it is a little bit of a how-to guide on how it can be easier to read classics for you guys if you're not really, if you find classics really hard to get through, or if you're not really sure if you would be able to get through the older style of English and the denser sentences and content that come along with a lot of classics. This is the way that I've found it easier for myself to get into them. So, first and foremost, the biggest, the best way that I can tell you guys to consume your classics is audiobooks. Now, not just audiobooks, like just listening to them, but listening to them as you read. So, what's a good thing about audiobooks concerning the classics genre is that you can get them for free. You can get them on this app right here, this little friend right here called LibriVox. It is free. All the audiobooks are free and they're usually pretty good. They are done by LibriVox volunteers, so actually if you wanted to, you could volunteer yourself because it is that easy to read an audiobook. So, for example, if you wanted to read Frankenstein, they have Frankenstein right here. If you doesn't want to focus on my phone. Right there. So they have different types of Frankenstein and they have multiple versions of Frankenstein that are all done by different volunteers. So sometimes you'll have one that's read by one person and one person only, like this one is read by Corey Samuel, or you'll have some that are read by, it'll say at the top there, it'll say read by LibriVox volunteers. So that'll be like occasionally it'll be like every chapter is read by a different person around the world, or it'll be like a full cast audiobook that you can have that like every character is different, so like every character's point of view. So with Evelina, the point of views are through letters, so every letter that goes back and forth is said in that person's voice or whatever to keep it a little bit more straightforward. But I have always used audiobooks to read with my classics. Why? Because I find it actually focuses me more. So when I'm reading my classic, I will take it and I will be sitting there with my other things in hand, and I will have it here, for example, Pride and Prejudice, and I will be reading it, and I find some classics, like Pride and Prejudice, is okay to read without an audiobook, but it actually helps a lot to have it with you because it keeps you doubly focused. So you have the words in front of you and you have them in your ear, and you can actually have your audiobook set up to like double times the speed to like match your reading pace, and it keeps you going and it keeps you in the story double time because you're reading the words and they're coming in your ear and it just flows really well. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Iconic first line, by the way. So yes, that is my #1 tip for reading classics and how to make it a little easier, is always have, when you're reading it physically, have it in your ear as well, because it can help with the flow of the sentences, it can help with the density of words, and it can help with your concentration. Because I often find that when I'm starting a new classic, my focus goes everywhere. I can't just, it takes me so long to get through them because I'm just, like sometimes I will get distracted, or my mind is just kind of thinking about these different things, and the prose isn't like sucking me in as like modern day literature most of the time does. And I find that audiobooks help to double down my focus to get it read, basically. Alright, so the second tip that I have for you guys, like my second and my third kind of go together. And they're both tips that I have picked up through being at university. Now, being at university, you have to actually physically study the books in literature, right? Like you have to know, you have to find things and find quotes for essays, and you have to like see the themes and really understand the book. And when you're reading it to then talk about in class, it helps a lot to have like a really well-read book with you. And one of my professors told me this trick is the best trick that you can ever do when you're reading your classics. So if you're sitting on your couch, like I would be sitting on my couch with my Pride and Prejudice in hand, I would have my audiobook in my ear and a pen in my hand. Because when you're actively reading, this is what my professor called it, active reading. When you're actively reading, you are going to be sitting there and you're gonna find your quotes and you're gonna go, alright, okay, so this is a really interesting part. So this is a little bit about Mr. Bennet. You're gonna go, Mr. Bennet was so odd, a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. So you'll see that, or like another quote or whatever, and you go, oh, that's really funny, and you'll underline it, and you'll see little things, and you'll find quotes that are actually really hilarious, especially in Jane Austen. Like this one. You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 23 years, at least. Oh, Mr. Bennet, how you abuse your own children. You have no consideration for my nerves. I love this book so much, if you can't tell. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet are my favorite. Anyways, that's besides the point. So, reading with a pen in hand actually actively engages you with what you're reading. I know a lot of you are going to be screaming at me going, Jen, but I can't write in my books. It is blasphemy. It is terrible to write in your books. And I'm like, listen, you know what? Writing in your books is fine. Do it. Trust me. Do it. And if it bothers you that much to do it, go pick up a book at like the thrift store for like the book that you want, and then write the hell out of that. Don't get a pretty copy, get one that you don't really like. Get one that's like a paperback. I have a million on my shelf across there because that was me before. I was like, I can't write in my pretty books. My Dracula is gorgeous. My Pride and Prejudice is a softcover. I can't do that. You know what? It's your book. Write in it. It's fine, okay? Do that, okay? Do it. And I know, writing in books, a lot of people have issues with. But from my end of things, writing in books makes it so special. Because when you go back and you flip through books, you find quotes that you love. Or you find sections that you've written all over for an essay once that you found interesting. And you write the little notes in it that are hilarious. Like, my friend has her textbook of her Shakespeare volume, her tome that she has, and she flipped through Macbeth, I believe? And she had drawn the little Simba character in it because that like section is when her professor was talking about how Macbeth is very similar to The Lion King, and The Lion King was like loosely based off of it, which I find amazing. So it is wonderful to write in your books, and it keeps your attention ready because you're like, what am I going to underline? What quotes am I going to absolutely adore in this? What am I going to understand? Or like you can write little notes to yourself in the margins. Like, I wrote, where did it go? When I'm angry at a character, I'll start screaming at them in the margins. Like, that's gonna help, but you know. Where did it go? Or like, especially when you're in university and you're studying a book in class, and something your professor says about a certain part, you can write that down in the margins. So I wrote, there's a part in here that like Mr. Bennet, the father, is just, he's completely missing the point, and I wrote, Mr. B is hoping that this will cure Lydia of her folly, but he's wrong. And I adore it. I love looking back at what I've written in my books. It is an enjoyable experience. And then the third tip that kind of goes with the second tip, because I do them both simultaneously, and that is when I find a quote that I really like, or a part that I like, or especially with classics like this, or any of my Charles Dickens ones, I mark where like characters are, like characters' names, so I can keep them straight, because a lot of them, especially in Charles Dickens, he is a character mastermind, and he just has so many names, and they're very hard to keep straight sometimes. So I use flags. As you can tell, my Pride and Prejudice is very, very marked up, and I use them to mark the places of the quotes that I have, or the character names, or whatever, as I've said. And you know what? If you don't take my advice and use a pen in your books and write all over it, you could also use these sticky notes to keep track of quotes that you like, moments that you like, characters and stuff like that, without having actually physically written in the book. But I think they will work well, very well together. So whenever I read my classics books, I have a whole kit of things around me, and it is usually my phone for my audiobook with earphones, which I don't have with me right now. I have the book itself, my sticky notes, and my pen. And I go about my day reading my wonderful classic book. This makes things a lot easier for me to keep track of. It's making me an active reader, it's doubling over my attention, and it's keeping tabs of what I really love. So a lot of people, just as a side note before I go, a lot of people actually have systems for their tabs, and they have like different colors mean different things, and I tried that for like 2 days and I really didn't enjoy it, because I would use up these little stickies so fast and it would just be like one color is just gone. So I would have like the colors that I would use at home, like as I was reading through. I would usually make it like themed to the cover or whatever, so it would like look aesthetically pleasing. Like I know for example, for red, white, and royal blue, I used like pink and purple and then like one blue sticky to like be aesthetically connected to the book. But so I would do that, and I would have like maybe like one color specifically for tabbing characters, just so I knew like that one. But other than that, I would use whatever color I fancied to mark whatever I wanted. And that's my system of tabbing, if you were wondering. But yes, so that is all I have for you guys today in this classic shelf video. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below if you have any tips to make reading your classics easier, because I would love to know. Or let me know if you use any of these tips, and if you write in your book or not. I would love to hear what side of the debate you guys are on, because as you know, I am here for destroying your books, because it's not actually destroying your books. Trust me. Make sure to like this video, it really helps me out, and subscribe down below and hit that little bell icon to like know when I upload. It would mean a lot to me. And follow me in all my social medias. They're tagged in the description bar down below. And I hope to see you soon in another video. Stay kind and keep on reading and writing in your books.